went to the Queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. And we've already got a new chatter in the chats. Hanker P. Boise celebrated the 4th the Idaho way. If it didn't rattle the windows, we assumed it was just someone closing a truck door. What was the other assumption? That somebody ran over to Ontario and got some bottle rockets? Is that what's going on? I know that fireworks that leave the ground and make loud booms aren't legal in Idaho. I know. Frazier says, I survived the 4th of July with all 10 fingers, most of my hearing, and only one minor emotional damage from the neighbor's fireworks. Oh, that's bad. Carlito, Tiffany, howdy, y'all. My kids had a great time on the 4th. They got like a full day of firecrackers and fireworks. Boy. And when they came back, we just let them play. 7, 9 years old. It's time to give them the lighter and give them their one day of pyrotechnics. And they came back and reported only a couple close calls. I had to remind myself continuously, I survived. I played with fireworks. I survived. Like, the odds are actually in their favor. You know, if you talk to their mom, the odds are not in their favor. They're going to lose a finger. But if you talk to their dad, I'm like, actually, the odds are actually in their favor. They'll probably make it just fine. All right, guys, I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend, celebrated the 250th anniversary of our great nation's founding. And for that, we are going to celebrate with a simultaneous sip. We have a retrospective looking all the way back to George Washington and how it really was when they were fighting the Revolutionary War, and that spirit of liberty to take our future into our own hands. And so, as we join together for the simultaneous sip, we are going to listen. We are going to watch this moment in history, this retrospective, if you will. So join me now for the simultaneous sip, and all you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day as we listen to George Washington explain what it will be like in our new nation. And join me now.
Sure, one of them will make sense to the entire world.
We'll use the random one.
That about sums it up. That sums it up well.
Inches and feet. And 12 feet to a yard. No, if only it were that simple.
You asked me about temperature? No.
Yeah. You asked me about temperature? No. Just me _PNW, Pacific Northwest. Great 4th. Glad you made it. Pony Boy, good morning. Pony Boy, I started watching the TV show Landman. And your work down there must be rough. All right, so Donald Trump gave his great, huge speech at the 250th anniversary birthday party, if you will, for our great nation. And he started it out with a banger, because guess what? We are still one nation under one flag.
Across the generations, Americans have fought, bled, and died, not just to secure those rights, but to expand them to citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed, because we are one people. We are one family. You showed that tonight with one flag and as our deck mighty God.
That's pretty cool. It was a good speech. Now, it started a little bit later. There was a thunderstorm that rolled through, so they delayed it. And Trump ended up, I think, walking off stage at like midnight. And then they had the huge fireworks show. I think I read 850,000 fireworks. Ooh. It was the largest fireworks show ever put on in the United States. And I saw the world, but then I saw some that were clear. I don't know. One of the largest fireworks show ever put on in the world. It was huge. Pray the Rose Daily, happy Monday. And as one nation under God, being treated equal under the law, somebody is finally going to get his license revoked.
Faced having his driver's license revoked after an alleged hit and run in Northern California on Friday. A spokesperson for the Napa County Sheriff's Office tells TMZ a deputy submitted a driver recertification request to the California DMV, which could require the 86-year-old Pelosi to undergo a new driver's test. The incident also comes after Pelosi was convicted of a separate DUI back in 2022.
So that would happen in his kitchen.
Nancy Pelosi's husband, right, got a DUI, and he just over the weekend got in another hit and run. so his consequences under the law run are you're going to have to reapply for your driver's license. What a great nation we live in, where a rapist and a protester can get the same sentence. You know what I'm saying?
Over the weekend,
the thought of running away. The thought of running away from an accident scene doesn't really cross my mind. You know what I'm saying? But apparently for the Pelosi's, this is just how they handle a Wednesday night heading back from the bar. All right, over in the Middle East, things are still a little bit tense. Allegedly, we have a ceasefire, although they're still firing at each other.
Right now, there are hundreds of thousands of Iranians in the streets of Tehran, marking the funeral for the late Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. This event is scheduled to end on July 9th and has included international delegations from countries like Oman and Saudi Arabia. Many of the attendees chanted "Death to America" as they demonstrated, but there was no appearance from Iran's new Supreme Leader, Mustafa Khamenei. With the ceasefire ongoing, there are questions about this 60-day window and whether Iran will make serious concessions to avoid a return to war. The Israelis are reportedly preparing a unilateral strike package against Iran, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke this morning on Fox News about the relationship he has with President Trump.
All right, before we get into that, so I thought it was kind of significant that they're just now getting around to celebrating his death or mourning.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked. I was like, what's going on here?
So every other time that, like when Soleimani died, within a week, they had their big funeral procession and the whole thing. So the fact that they've waited months and months. I mean, we're talking February, March, April, May, June.
I assumed it had already happened.
Yeah,
I was like,
4
what's
months,
going
5
on?
months. They're finally, all right, let's have that funeral. You know why that's happening? Because America was kicking their butts.
Oh,
that's why. They
so
couldn't
just
show their heads.
They just need a rally point.
They need a rally. When can we come out? When can we come out of the cave? So during the ceasefire, they're taking advantage of it and doing the ceremony. So let's continue to hear what Netanyahu had to say, because he kept his finger on the trigger button over the weekend.
We see eye to eye just about everything. And sometimes, as happens among the best of allies, and we are the best of allies, there can be differences of opinion. We usually speak about it in open conversation. We're allies, and we share not only common interests, we share common values. America has been the defender of freedom for 250 years, and Israel appreciates that because we're a free, independent country.
Who the boss is. Reports do indicate the Israeli prime minister could visit Washington as soon as late this week to meet with President Trump at the White House, although the prime minister told Fox and Friends that no date was set yet. Over the weekend, the Israelis launched a few strikes and did some shelling against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Another Israeli strike was conducted against Hamas in Gaza, but largely the region has stayed quiet as the ceasefire holds. This month will be critical to see how the Iranians enter into these technical talks with the United States during the 60-day window. The Trump administration has made clear again and again, Iran will never have a path to a nuclear weapon.
Right now, I see pictures of Gaza, it just looks like a hellscape, doesn't it? Just looks like a complete and total hellscape.
Yeah.
So the ceasefire's holding, although they're still firing, because Israel doesn't care about the ceasefire. Shantini says, howdy, folks. I'm glad she made it. Glad you made it, Shantini. All right, guys, we still do have to get 75 chatters this month. We are not even close. So tell your friends and family, everybody you know, get your neighbors, anybody that's standing around you right now as you're out and about doing your business, say, hey, log into Rumble, get a login, and come chat. You got to help out the show. Peasants must survive. Pony Boy just can't trust him. He depends on Big Brother helping. Yeah, I think there's going to, I mean, if you listen to the anti-America, anti-Israel crowd, they're like, Netanyahu's just getting Trump to do his bidding. I think Netanyahu's under a lot of pressure from his hardliners to continue fighting. And it's, from what I can tell, it's the only thing keeping him in power over there. Like they won't replace him or have an election while they're actively engaged in fighting.
That's like the only thing keeping him alive.
Might be, I don't know. Now, circling the world looking for communism and fascism of all flavors, let's jump over to Cuba. So the Sky News got an interview with the president of Cuba. And, you know, there's these things that come up that even a little peasant can see as bluster. Cuba's like, oh, we're prepared to fight the United States. Right. I don't think you're prepared to fix the 1950, like, LeBaron you got floating around Cuba.
I was going to say, I didn't think they had sabers to rattle.
Yeah, I was unaware that you had sabers left to rattle. But nonetheless, and this is something, as we get into this, we're going to talk about communism for a lot of the rest of the show. The battle between freedom and communism, or individualism and collectivism, however you want to stage that. It's a battle as old of time. Some might even make the comparison that it is the great battle between good and evil, right? That archetype gets pushed into collectivism, where you sacrifice yourself on behalf of the amorphous collective, and you end up doing bad things to do that, right? Or you take care of yourself and you treat others like you would want yourself to be treated. That's the other end of the spectrum here. So Cuba is on their last leg, playing out and living out the collectivist dream.
But do you believe they are going to use force and an attack is imminent?
If there is an attack, the Cuban people will respond in unity, firmness, and in defense of our sovereignty. We don't want the war, but we're not afraid of it. And we are getting ready so that we're not surprised or defeated.
We can talk about how you're getting ready in a moment, but we have seen a military buildup off your coast. When Donald Trump has threatened Venezuela, for example, he has acted. When he has threatened Iran, he has acted. I know you're saying that me asking whether an attack being imminent is hypothetical, but we've seen in the past when he has said something, he has done it. Are you taking what he is saying seriously when he says we can take Cuba?
We need to move away from confrontation for the sake of both our peoples. I think that the American people, for which we are respectful, and the Cuban people can have a wonderful relationship as very good neighbors because we're very close to each other. I, like many other million Cubans, are willing to give our lives for the revolution. And we are willing to fight to the very last drop of blood.
Okay.
In order to defend our rights, our independence, our sovereignty, and our achievement.
Do you think the average Cuban who's surviving on one egg a month and like $1.80 a month in wages actually is like, yeah, no, I'll fight for this system. I love it. I'll fight for my neighbor. I'll keep starving for my neighbor. The Cuban people have been so abused by the system. They are literally being asked to starve so that their neighbors can starve with them.
I can't even tell if this guy believes his own words.
I don't. It's interesting. Just looking at his suit, I thought to myself, I bet you your suit wasn't even made by a Cuban tailor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like any entrepreneurial spirit, any business owner, anything like that, right? It reduces down your human contribution to any entity, any business, any industry as simply a disposable cog in the wheel. They convince you that your labor is irreplaceable.
Well, this
reporter, when it
this
comes
reporter
down
gal,
to it in practice, you're the most replaceable thing in the system.
This reporter gal was cutting that guy to shreds. I mean, exposing him pretty easily. Like, oh, well, we'll talk about what you're going to do in a second. You know?
Yeah.
The whole time. I mean, he just doesn't have any power at all. You just see him just sitting there go like, well, we're just going to defend everybody to the last drop of blood. It's like, really? Go ahead and jump in the meat grinder.
Yeah, good luck.
What are you talking about?
In Donald Trump's speech at the in DC for the 250th, he said something, and this will be one of those quotes that'll live in history.
You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both. As for those who peddle Marxist lies about...
You can be a communist or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both.
Exactly.
You can either be loyal to America or loyal to Karl Marx.
Yep.
So back in 2020, Marco Rubio gave us a little impromptu speech in his car. Now, remember, Marco Rubio's family comes from Cuba, right? Which is really, of all the countries that have put communism into practice, it's the most close to Trotsky-like communism you can get. The entire country is in on it, right? The whole country is under the iron fist of communism. So when Marco Rubio talks about this, he points some things out that communists do as they take your freedoms in return for security. You never, ever get that security back.
Democratic socialism sounds benign, but at the core of democratic socialism is Marxism. And at the core of Marxism is this fake offer that if you turn over more of your individual freedom, we're going to provide you security. We're going to provide you free healthcare. We're going to provide you free education. But the problem is that when they can't deliver on it, or when you're not happy with it, you don't get your freedoms back. And by freedoms, I don't just mean elections. I'm talking about the right to choose your own doctor, the right to make healthcare decisions for yourself, what your kids learn in school, what schools they go to, all that stuff you lose control over, and you don't get it back just because the security they promised you didn't happen. So that's what we're on the verge of having to decide here in this country. It's a reason why people flee countries that have this stuff. It's a big deal for America. And I hope people start waking up to that reality.
So let's
Amen.
Let's simply define the governing model of communism, socialism, fascism, Marxism, socialism, all the isms, as compared with republicanism or a capitalist form of government or something like that, right? Something that's liberty oriented. Let's just take schooling, for example.
Okay.
Right. As a parent, I have a duty to educate my children and prepare them for the world. This is a duty that a burden that nature puts on me. Does that make sense? You bring this child into the world that can't find food, can't put itself to bed, can't change its own diaper, totally dependent on its parents. So that burden gets placed upon you. If you want this life to exist, you have to care for it. Okay. Now, as the child gets older and I've got my own interests, the state comes in just like any third actor and says, hey, give me the kid and I'll take the burden of education from you. And you can have the security that would provide, the time freed up from childcare and child education to go continue working. And likely you work for some public entity, some state corporation, or a corporation that's incorporated by the state, right? So you keep working for our need, GDP, and we'll educate your kid for the next generation of GDP earners. Good factory workers. That's kind of what public education was trained on for. And if your kids study, if you keep them going to school and they get good grades, they can get a good job and they can achieve their American dream.
What a bargain.
But what happens when public school no longer makes good on the agreement when you enrolled your children to teach your kids how to read or to teach your kids how to do math or to teach your kids how to actually survive in the world? What happens when the school fails to do that? Can you just take your kids out of school? Oh, we have truancy laws for that. Can you just homeschool your kids? Most states won't allow you just to homeschool your kids. They still have to be enrolled somewhere. You still have to participate in standard education. Like here in Washington State, right? You don't really homeschool your kids. You get permission from the state to school your kids at home as long as they pass the curriculum they say, which is interesting because homeschoolers actually do better on like everything because their parents actually care that they pass those tests, right? So that's the whole point here is in communism, you never get it back. You never get your freedoms back. Whatever freedom you give them, right? Whatever burden that normally would be your own to care for, whether it's child education, whether it's making good investments, right? Oh, we get with the stand-up entities to make sure nobody loses too much money. Normally the banks, but we'll pretend like we'll take away your freedom for investments and things like that because you could make bad choices. And this is in everything. Anywhere the government is involved, and they said, let's take some of your liberty to choose, even to make a bad deal or to make a bad choice. Let's take that decision from you. You never get the right to take the decision back, right? Without fighting for it. Catherine Austin Fitts, this is a good little edit of one of her interviews. And Catherine Austin Fitts, for those of you who don't know, she was a former investment banker, and she worked in the Bush Jr. administration as, I can't remember if it was the housing director or a HUD director, but she was one of the cabinet secretaries or deputy secretaries, somewhere in there. She worked in the banking finance world, right? And at some point she got attacked by the SEC and the DOJ. She survived whatever lawsuits they brought at her. And now she runs the I think it's Solana report or something like that.
Yeah,
She actually does a lot of very similar to what we do at 1776. Help coach people out of the matrix, help them to get in a position where they're not, totally dependent on whether the government itself sinks or swims or the monetary system sinks or swims. And one of the things that she's talked about is there's this idea of Mr. Global, right? The risk managing bankers who kind of direct all of the world's capital, and they get to pick the winners and the losers in a big way. And what they've done is they've created kind of this control grid, right? This is the China social credit system where everything you do is tied to your digital identification, to the point to where if you jaywalk, they don't write you a ticket. They just charge your account right then and there, right? It's just like, oh, yeah, you want a jaywalk? It's $40. It's like,
go ahead, do it all day.
Yeah, you want to go to that bad website? Your phone goes on lockdown. Like whatever it is. Want to go learn about Tiananmen Square? Boop, no soup for you. Okay, that's how it works. So she's describing the control grid. Before we get to that, Carlite says, I was deployed to Gitmo for several weeks in 1994. It is beautiful there in Cuba. Beaches, nature, wildlife, etc. Tourism would make the country very wealthy. I do believe that. Douglas Wyatt, hey, buddy. Glad you made it, Doug. All right, so here's Catherine Austin Fitts talking about the control grid that's coming. And again, this is a communist or an authoritarian, at least, which is probably going to lean fascistic, right? If you're going on the right wing side of things. But either way, it's that authoritarian collective that wants to implement this on behalf of the people. But who's the collective? Like if we say, whose better interest are the people, the collective serving? It's always going to be that little elite group that kind of take upon themselves the mantle of, if it's good for us, it's good for the collective. This is going to be your socialist leaders, your Kremlin type characters, senators, representatives, right? Your elite actors, uber wealthy bankers, the elite.
Former investment banker Catherine Austin Fitts exposes the long-term master plan orchestrated by financial elites to establish total control over humanity, which she believes will ultimately fail.
Is the master plan, though, a digital prison? I mean, I get that we can't really count on governments to be transparent and trustworthy when it comes to managing finances, but is the idea really to build this digital matrix?
The master plan is to implement total control and to run a society with two sets of rules, one for a small group of oligarchs. So I don't know if you ever saw the interview after Jared Kushner left the first Trump administration. He gave an interview and he said, given what's happening in biotech, I'm going to be the first generation to live forever, the last generation not to live forever. So now, you can't let 8 billion people live forever because you're going to have an environmental problem. So you have one group of people who apparently think they're going to live forever. And then you have another set of rules for everybody else. And you want to put them on a trajectory to steadily decline in terms of number of population. So I think you're looking at a very long-term plan to reduce the population and create a two-class society where you have, the oligarchs and then everybody else. And the oligarchs are free of having to manage everybody else, one, because they have complete control, but they can turn it over to AI and let the AI do it.
Just to play devil's advocate here, when you speak of these oligarchs, like who are they? What evidence convinces you, that this is a coordinated effort rather than the natural evolution of
used
tech
to
and
live,
financial systems?
I used to live and work with it. So, I lived in that world and I watched them become more and more alienated from
Who is them? Who is them?
So it's the people who run the financial system. At any given time, it's 100 to 1,000 people who run the different key spots in the banks, the insurance companies, the central bank, and the treasury. But I saw them reach a wide consensus that you couldn't trust the average person to behave in a responsible way. And so you had to assert more central control and essentially by giving people lots of consumer attention and choice, move them out of having any political say whatsoever. So you wanted to reduce them to the point where their vote or their participation in the political system didn't mean anything. I don't know if you've heard me say this, but I think they're going to fail. I think this is a vision that they're going to try and institute. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to fail. And my concern is it could hurt a lot of people and do a lot of damage before on the way to failing. And so I think it's imperative that we do everything we can to protect ourselves, but we also do everything to push back and push back in a way that takes us in a positive direction when it fails.
So one of the things that those of us that are people of faith can count on is that in the end, good wins, right? In the end, good wins. In the end, the individual your salvation will be insured against the collective. Okay. That's for a believer's perspective. It's in the end, good wins. And I think that perspective holds out in the long-term perspective over history, is that in the end, the arc of history bends towards justice, as Martin Luther King Jr. used to say, and has been repeated often. However, does it bend fast enough in our lifetime? Right? Are we going to be the people that suffer through this, or are we going to be people that survive through it? Because in the end, they will fail. All collectivism fails because it takes the power of the creator into themselves to try to mold society into its image, right? Those who are molding it, rather than allow society to evolve the way that nature would allow it to evolve, which would typically look like a society that's based in the family unit, not a society that breaks apart the family unit by taking kids into public schools, by taking kids away from their parents, by encouraging spouses not to have good relationships, by splitting their time apart in order to run on the hamster wheel to just pay the bills, the whole thing, right? Society should be focused around the family, but instead, our society is focused around the bank balance sheet, and that creates the wrong levers. But the bankers, they live in the balance sheet. That's all they care about, right? They're completely disconnected.
Well, have you ever heard be in the world, but not of the world? Well, these guys live in the world.
Live in the world. They're definitely, they're of the world, however you want to say it. Yeah. 2 cents worth. Ontario, Canada here. Worked with your father. Happy to finally catch the podcast. I'm so glad. See, that's the show growing in real time. Dad, thank you for the referral. 2 cents worth. Thank you for joining us. We love our international audience.
I'll take 2 cents.
Peasants are peasants everywhere. Right? Okay, so this next gentleman, this was a documentary that was done on Vice. Now, Vice used to be owned by Gavin McInnes. He sold it. It went far left, but they still do some good little, investigative journalism pieces.
Sure.
And this person right here, he's got his face covered. He's got a mask on, which makes sense to me. Okay. These bankers, these whistleblowers that come from that world, their life is on the line for revealing the things they do. As Henry Ford said, if the world understood the banking system, there'd be riots in the street by morning. And I think that is the truth. If you understand who manages our money, we'd be a little disgusted at the man behind the curtain, so to speak. Well, this banker describes exactly what's going on in the elite banking circles.
12 years between 1996 and 2008. It's an incredibly secretive world. No one really seems to understand it. I thought it was about time someone explained what really happens. Investment banking covers a multitude of sins. In its very simplest form, it's about putting together people who want to invest money and people who want money invested in their companies. And we're in the middle, taking a huge slice. I had been to a decent university. I could also bullshit with the best of them. And that is an important aspect of any job in the city. The city is a place that rewards bullshit probably more than any other career. I couldn't believe the amount of money I was earning. Within about 4 years, I was earning 120 and my bonuses were getting up to 300. And then by the end of it, I was over 600. The money is ridiculous. I mean, the justifications for the money have always been things like, oh, it's stressful. Well, this wasn't as stressful as a teacher's job. Oh, it's dangerous or risky. It's not as risky as being in the army. I always felt a little bit guilty about it. Like, why the hell are these people spending so much money on me when all I'm doing is pushing around bits of paper? It was a source of continual bafflement. Cocaine is the perfect drug for bankers because it is expensive, it's glamorous, it's something that can make you talk even more bullshit than you normally do. It gives your already inflated ego an even bigger puff. It used to be a core part of my strategy for getting clients on board. We both had something on each other. I could lose him his job, he could lose me my job.
Did you hear that? You know, go with the client and both use a little bit of cocaine and it becomes your little secret. And that, of course, can just escalate into any other little secret you both can keep.
You know, I used to come back from like an all-night bender, go straight into the office, and I'd have to go on the mic in front of 200 people on the trading floor. One of the very first major presentations I ever did. I was doing it and suddenly everyone started giggling and I was thinking, what the f*** is going on here? And suddenly I saw this blood hit onto my white shirt. And I was like, oh my God, I've got a massive coke-related nostril bleed all over my crisp white shirt. It's the perfect job for a psychopath. If you look at what psychopaths are, and I'm not talking about Hannibal Lecter here, I'm talking about actual, normal, everyday psychopaths. They are manipulative. They are often charming. They hate jobs that require serious qualifications. They are people who don't show remorse or have empathy. For example, if a company announces that it's going to lose 1,000 jobs, you might feel that's a bit of a shame. But actually in the city, we would absolutely celebrate and reward that company because that company is going to be more efficient and it's going to make greater profits. It's an industry that will...
So as your dad or grandpa loses his job,
yay!
Bankers are over there having a Coke party because we're going to get more profitable.
Reward psychopaths. And it's an industry that psychopaths thrive in. Insider trading happens all the time because people in the city aren't satisfied just with their six-figure salaries and their six-figure bonuses. They want to get even more money. For example, during the financial crisis, there used to be rumors spread that this company is going bust or that this bank is about to have to ask the government for some money. And by doing that, these hedge funds were exacerbating the financial crisis, making it worse and worse and worse. But they didn't give a because they were making a buck themselves and they never got found out because they could always claim they'd heard it from someone else first. So it's one of those crimes you never get found out for. The thing is about insider trading is people think it's like this victimless crime, but actually what it means is that a hedge fund, as it usually is, has bought some shares off Grand's pension fund. And that Grand's pension fund has unwittingly sold it to them, not realizing the share price is about to rocket when it gets taken over. So in fact, it's not a victimless crime. They're stealing directly off your granny. It's really simple. You've just got a bunch of really clever, greedy, ruthless people together, and the rewards are massive and the risks of getting caught are negligible. So they are going to do everything in their power via insider trading, spreading false rumors, market manipulation, anything. They'll just game the system to make a fast buck. And unless they really sort out regulation, it will always be the case. I was playing for the team that was on the side of corporations that were raping this planet. And I was on the side of corporations who didn't give a shit about their workforce, but just gave a shit about their quarterly earnings figures. Kind of gets to you, especially if you have the kind of upbringing I had, which was fairly left-wing, religious, and I was a kind of a hippie as well. You know, I used to tell young kids about what a terrible job banking was. And then when I described it, strippers, £1,000 meals, cocaine, bonuses of £500,000-600,000, they were like, tell me how I get this job.
And that is the struggle, right? When people criticize capitalism and you watch this video, your concerns are merited, right? And this is where this video or this type of understanding of what I would call crony capitalism is the reason Karl Marx wrote what he wrote. It's the capitalist insiders that get rich. So let's turn the system on its head. How do they get rich? They get rich from the backs of the working class. So let's take the working class, exalt them, make them rulers, tax the rich, bring down the rich, literally eat the rich. Who are the rich? These guys. Do they warrant being eaten? Probably. Okay. But they're not real capital, are they? Why do they even exist? Let's go back to first principles. Why is it possible that bankers like that can exist?
Why is it possible?
There's one answer. Government regulation keeps the little guys from getting in on the game. It's that simple. Rules like accredited investor rules and things like that prevent this market from being free. It's an insider market. Ivy Leaguers only. Does that make sense? It's just another elite class. Now, one of the concerns I have, and I think this is a valid concern, and Catherine Austin Fitts shares this concern, is that Trump is kind of playing ball with these guys. that this is the world he grew up in, this fiat, fake money world, right? And so he's trying to move the goalposts. And we recognize this. It's a good thing on the whole, right? Trying to prevent our economy from just collapsing instantaneously, which is what other leaders might try to do. That let's just collapse it. This is Germany in the 1920s. Just print as much money as you can. Hurry up and pay the war debt off. They denoted it in marks, not in gold. So just print the marks. Screw the people. He's right. Does that make sense? Like he's trying to prevent that from being an option that is placed on the table. And so to do that, we've had a couple of these instances over time where we needed to prop up our economy. One of the things that happened coming out of World War II was in order for corporations to entice the very few qualified workers to come work for them, was they offered pensions, right? Give us your freedom to invest, give us your time, come work for us for 30 or 40 years, and then we'll guarantee a retirement.
Yeah, we'll take care of you.
And what happened? The growth that
it worked for a while.
It worked for a while, but the growth that would have funded those pensions was robbed by the 1970s inflation crisis, the oil. So all of a sudden, those pensions that were funded, there wasn't enough there after the market collapsed to continue to pay. So what happened in 1983? They shifted systems. They said, okay, we can't put retirement on the companies themselves and their balance sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a program where you can contribute to your own retirement. The company will match, but the win or loss, that's kind of on you. So the company is indemnified from you not having a good return. If the stock market goes down, don't blame Boeing, right? And that was the 401k and the IRAs.
Yeah.
Those didn't even exist until I was born, 1983.
Yeah,
so
we forget
401ks
that.
and the IRAs, they do good. They do well. People make money. .com crash. Right. They do well. They do great. People make money. 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah.
And now they're doing great. What does Trump tell us every day? Stock market's doing great. Here's the problem. All those people with 401ks, if you started it right when you were 20, coming out of high school, getting your first career job, you worked 40 years. Where are you at now? You're in retirement, right? If you, in 1983, if you were 20 and you had a 42 year, you're at 65, you're ready to retire.
Yeah.
All that 401k money that up till now has been net going into the market.
Yep.
Now, the very first people that have been contributing for 40 years are pulling out.
Oh, no.
No, what's going to happen? We better move the goalposts again. So what did they do? They created an incentive for little kids to basically have their own 401ks. So instead of starting when you get your first career and your first job, now you're going to start when you're a baby.
Treasury Department announcing the nationwide rollout of Trump accounts on the 4th of July. And starting today, families can start tracking those investments on these accounts for kids. So the Trump accounts are available to anyone up to the age of 18. For babies born between 2025 and 2028, the accounts will be kickstarted by a $1,000 donation from the government. Then families can contribute anything up to $5,000 per year. Employers and philanthropies can contribute as well. If maximum contributions are made for kids born this year, that could mean more than $300,000 by the time they become an adult. If no contributions are made, that return on investment still adds up to about $5,800. Children born between 2016 and 2024 do not benefit from the starter deposit, although they can still use the accounts as a long-term investment vehicle and benefit from contributions from family, employers, or charities. Already more than 50 companies have pledged to match donations, and there's those charitable donations as well. CEO Michael Dell and his wife Susan pledged more than $6 billion in seed money for children in disadvantaged zip codes. And
so what's happening here? He's tying America's success, which we determine by GDP, which is typically reflected over into the stock market, which mops up all the extra liquidity. And by putting money into the stock market for a kid when they're 1 year old, 0 years old, you're locking it up for at least 18 and likely locking it up for another 40. So you're locking up that liquidity for 50, 60 years with this plan. The last 401k plan only locked it up for 30 or 40 years, right? And the plan before that locked it, that was implemented after World War II with the pensions, that locked people. Do you see the pattern here?
Yeah, and I think at the end of each one of these periods of time, you're going to wish you had your original investment back.
What does it mean to be a millionaire at 28 when 2/3 of people your age are also millionaires at 28?
Right. Let's all go get a burger and a Coke and it'll be all gone.
It means nothing. Right? But this creates a tie-in. Now you become committed to the American system. You become committed to the stock market because you have a beneficial interest in it. Just like people who have a 401k. We don't want to get rid of the financial system. What would happen to my 401k? Well, I don't know. We'd stop war. We'd stop gun trafficking. We'd pretty much eliminate human trafficking across international borders. Yeah, but my 401k.
Well, you get to the point where GDP and your 401k rely on us going to war.
Yeah. Now, I want to remind people this is being pitched as some active philanthropy.
As part of the big, beautiful bill that created an investment account for every child at birth. You know, every child gets on their phone a little share of Microsoft and NVIDIA, et cetera. That started on Saturday. You can gift into these accounts. Every child forevermore born into this country under the age of 2 is going to get $1,000 invested in the S&P 500 that can compound for their lifetime. If you start with $1,000, as you know, and that is matched, and you add just $10 a week, that's $50,000 for every child at 18. This makes real the promise of the American dream, not for some, but for everybody. Every child a shareholder in the upside of America. So today is a big celebration. We're going to have the first ever joint bell ringing by the NASDAQ and NYSE, and the first ever remote bell ringing from the Oval Office at 9:30 Eastern time. So it's a great celebration. We've got incredible CEOs from Michael Dell to Ryan McInerney and across the spectrum who've joined the Invest America CEO Council, who are giving huge contributions of their own. And of course, you mentioned Gwen Shotwell's gift this morning, an extraordinary gift. 2 million shares of SpaceX to 2 million kids that they'll hold in their accounts over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. And when they're 18, they can hold on to the shares of SpaceX or sell those shares. But it shows the flexibility of this platform. This is not a program. This is a platform. It is the largest unlock of direct philanthropy in the history of the country.
Direct philanthropy that will tie your posterity into the system.
However you want to sell it, I guess. But this sounds to me like it's just like, hey, man, birth tourism's down. We need to like give them a coupon.
As peasants, right? This is what, listen, for my kids, we have not applied for these. We're not doing these. I'm going to take that $1,000 and I'll just put it in a separate account that they can control that doesn't have all the strings attached and all the regulation. Because here's the thing. When that money's in that account, they can just down the road, they'll add penalties for taking it out. They'll add this. They could do not debanking, but in banking or whatever, bail-ins, right?
Yeah.
You can just take it out of the account.
If you put any money in this, it is just dead money.
It's no different than if you're looking at a 401k in 1983 and you're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Listen. Because of inflation, you can't keep up with it.
No.
You've got to go do something else.
It just whittles away over time.
Now, it's brilliant if you're trying to bring back American stock market dominance, American market dominance. This is going to stake. This is called staking. This is going to tie up that capital in stock market approval. Remember, everything on the stock market is a public company. It's basically essentially owned and regulated by the government. They have the last say in all the regulations. Right. They have the veto vote. You're investing in the government regulators to support these businesses. One act of legislation, they could say something like, oh, all these 2 billion shares in SpaceX was distributed, and in 25 years they could go, we're nationalizing SpaceX.
Right. Just pretend for a second that these programs don't exist, and what would you do with the money? Well, you would just hold on to it, invest it yourself, and you would try to grow the fund over time, and it would just be sitting in a savings account most likely, right?
Yeah.
But they can't get their fingers on it if it's in a savings account.
Yeah, they don't control it.
Please put it on our accounts over here so that we can just like manage it and control it, and everybody just gets this warm feeling like this pile of money is just sitting over here waiting for you to get older. Yeah, while 20 years goes by, they whittle it away bit by bit.
Yeah, and by the time your kid's 28 and he's like, I'm 100 millionaire, you're like you and every other kid on the block.
Exactly.
But right now it's under rent control. Her rent should be about $6,000 a month. She has a renter in there that's paying $350 a month that took over the lease from a person who died that had it. You know what I mean? Like, this is I'm like, so what can you do? She's like, well, if I sell it, it's worth like 350 grand in Manhattan.
Ugh.
Right. But if I can get the renter out and get the contract out, then I could raise the rent to 6,000. But as long as I have that active contract, dude, I was like, that's collectivism. Like they're totally holding you. You went and bought that asset with the assumption it would go up in value, and the government is the one preventing it from going up in value, right? So anyways, Representative Coomer was on with Fox News, on Fox and Friends, talking about the Save America Act. Trump mentioned the Save America Act no less than a dozen times in his speeches over the weekend. He refused to sign the housing bill until the Save America Act was passed. This is coming to a head. Now, remember, last week I pointed it out early. Trump really came out hard against communism, and that was the whole theme of this 4th of July week, was this is America versus communism. You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You can't be both.
Slimmed down version, is that something that we could still have a glimmer of hope about?
Well, I hope so. And Leader Thune needs to tell us what they can pass in the Senate. I mean, surely to goodness, we as Republicans can agree that you should have to show a valid ID to vote. You have to do that in Kentucky, but there are many blue states that don't. And there's a lot. There are always the states that have questions. There are always the states that take days and days to count their votes. And there's always election controversies in those states. So why not put it to rest? Why not ensure that every American has confidence in the integrity of our elections by showing a voter ID, or by showing a real ID? That's what we have to do to go to the airport and get in the Capitol. And I show an ID to check in a hotel, and at least 4 or 5 times a day, but not to vote. I mean, that's preposterous. So we've passed the Save America Act in the House, and it's collecting dust in the Senate. The clock is ticking. It needs to pass in the next few weeks in order for that to take effect for this election this November. So that's why the president's frustrated. Several of my colleagues are frustrated. I don't agree with their tactics to shut down the House because the Senate's not doing its job. What needs to happen, and what needs to happen right now, is Leader Thune and the leadership in the Senate need to call Mike Johnson and say, okay, we can't pass the Save America Act as it's written, but we all agree that we need to show a valid voter ID. So let's get together and come up with a compromise, because we have to do it by August the 1st. And again, the clock.
So we're setting up a situation here where the clock is literally running out. There's been talk about trying to add the Save America Act to reconciliation, a budget bill. The problem is the parliamentarian then gets a veto vote, and they won't fire the parliamentarian. So you won't get rid of the filibuster to let it pass under normal order. You won't get rid of the parliamentarian, so you can't wiggle it in through a reconciliation bill. What's the Senate doing? They're allowing the people who are trying to control our country through authoritarian means to continue to have their way. Right? We are a republic. We vote for our leaders. But in the words of the late John McCain, it was hearsay, but he said, we can't let the people pick their own leaders, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't get to pick our Ivy League banker buddies, and we wouldn't get to pick our communist acolytes that went out down and trained in Cuba back in the 80s, a la Kim Bass, right?
Yeah.
Why would the Republicans not be on board with this? Probably because some Republicans benefit from it. And as we've learned from every communist country and every totalitarian takeover, there's always people who play both sides, people who put on the mask of whatever factions, whatever political parties exist in any given nation. They put on those masks. And then when you get to the finish line, they pull the mask off, and you find out half of the guys on your side and half of the guys on the other side were in on it together. And then they collectively get together and shoot the other people. Right? I mean, that's what happens every single time.
An American always wants peace and order. But we will never shrink from danger or threat. We will always fight, and win. We got to do that. Because this is our culture, this is our character. Not every American is all of these things, but every American knows these are the traits that make our country exceptional. And exceptional it is. You do not have to be born here, but you do have to love what we have built. You must love our country. There's never been.
I thought it was kind of interesting this weekend. I just happened to be around somebody who is a illegal immigrant. He's married to a citizen. They have a family here. He should stay. He works hard. He's not into drugs. He should stay. He's one of those people you go, you should get the green card, right? Like you deserve it. You're here. You've assimilated. You speak great English, the whole thing. And he's on the list. Like he's not here legally. He doesn't have papers, that kind of thing, right? And this always puts us in a moral conundrum. I mean, I support deportation, but this guy, the thing I thought was odd was he was wearing a shirt that said F ICE. And on the back it says, imagine hating immigrants more than you hate pedophiles. The whole Epstein thing. And I thought, if you've got an application in for asylum or a work program, I probably wouldn't wear that shirt for fear you might get picked up on a random camera.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to love our country, man.
Anything like us anywhere on earth, and we are not going to let anyone take that away. Yet as we approach this magnificent anniversary, we see our American identity under a renewed attack. A generation after we fought and won the Cold War against the menace of communism, there is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success. These are not mere political disagreements like differences over taxes or regulations. Communism is a mortal threat to America.
This was one of the big motivations I had for starting the show. I said it many times 5 years ago. I still say it. I don't care if the boot's coming from the right or the left. It's still a boot on my neck, right? The COVID lockdowns happened under Donald Trump. I saw the weaponization of all government. Now, whether you think his reasons were justified or not, we saw the boots get laced up, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's coming from the right or the left. If there's an authoritarian or if there's a dictator in the neighborhood, that's my enemy, right? Because I want to preserve my ability to choose, period. Oh, of course, I go all the way back
to Pearl Harbor or even 9/11. It is the greatest threat to our country, including World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, or even 9/11. We're not going to let this happen to us. Believe me, we're not letting it happen.
So again, with that theme, one of the common things I saw amongst January 6ers was universally, we believed that the 2020 election was stolen, and it was ultimately stolen by the communists. Like universally, we believe that. It's interesting because Joe Biden said January 6th was the greatest threat to democracy, which is kind of the front door to socialism and the isms, right? Was January 6th. And here's Donald Trump saying completely leaving out January 6th and saying communism. What we believe was the threat on January 20th, January 6th, 2021, excuse me, was communism. That was why we protested. So Donald Trump adding his voice to this, that this is the battle we're in. We're not discussing tax rates. We're not discussing little policy points or the social safety net. We're literally discussing our independence and liberty or our slavery and subjectivity or our captivity.
Communism is the enemy of free people everywhere in the world. Never works. It's the enemy of the Constitution. Above all, it's the enemy of July 4th, 1776. It is the enemy indeed, even while the radicals and extremists.
Go back over to the chats here, Ron.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Probably got got all our 75 chats in while we've been over there. Okay. So Doug Wyatt, he mentioned this, hey buddy, and he'll second this. But in my sentencing, one of the things that they said over and over again was they pointed out that I had chanted 1776. They made that a very bad thing. That implied that I wanted to overthrow the government. That was horrible. That's our chant. And I know Doug Wyatt had the same experience, right? They used 1776 against him. Well, here's why. Is because to them, to the jackboots, 1776 is their enemy. But to us, it's our call of freedom. Yeah. It's our rally call, right? Polivox says, what does this mean? The Never Trumpers or others not participating won't get the 250 from Dell and others. No, I think anybody who has one of those Trump accounts will get the money.
Oh, yeah.
I'm choosing not to get one. Okay, let's continue with Trump.
Attack our incredible history at every turn. They are silent on the miserable history of communism itself because it never worked. Thousands of years, if you look at it under different names, under somewhat different ideologies and systems, that system has led to more death and destruction than any system ever tried. It killed 100 million people just in the last century alone. Communism is the exact opposite of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's death, tyranny, and the pursuit of evil. The godless communist morality states that anything is justified to bring about inhuman visions and to really propose what's good. They don't want good. They don't love God, and they don't want God. They don't love religion, and they don't want religion, and they won't have it. But we will not. They have no chance against that.
Wow. This is a speech from an American president. I mean, these are the kind of words that carry the kind of power that we read. This is why we still read the Gettysburg Address. This is why we still read the Federalist Papers. I mean, these are powerful sentiments that are being offered here, right? Communism always leads to ugliness, death, evil, right? Every time. And it's not just the last century. Communism wasn't created by Karl Marx. It was just articulated for the new world technology and letter writing and things like that. But collectivism has been tried over and over and over and over again. I mean, it's really one of the stories of the Bible. It's one of the stories of world history. Even our own country with the settlers who came to Jamestown originally tried collectivism and failed miserably. It wasn't until they literally said, every man for himself, that they actually were able to make it in Jamestown, right? It's absolutely key to us. And this has been the hope, right? This has been the hope of every American. This is coming back from, let's see, he gave two different speeches this weekend, one in North Dakota or South Dakota at the Mount Rushmore and one in DC. And I can't remember which one was which. Here's another one.
People have done more good, shown more courage, made more progress, righted more injustice, or achieved more greatness than you, the American people. For 250 years, the United States of America has been the hope, the promise, the light, and the glory among all of the nations of the world. All over the world, they try and be like us. Nobody can be like us. And with God's help, we will always be this or even better. We're going to be better. Here on our national mall, we're celebrating freedom's triumph over tyranny, liberty's conquest over oppression, and the enduring victory of the American spirit from the July 4th, 1776 to July 4th, 2026. Big dates. That's big dates. Two big ones. And tonight our country is stronger, freer, richer, safer, and prouder than ever before. But it all started with the miracle of history that lives forever in the heart of every single patriot. In Philadelphia, our founding fathers summoned the courage of giants and the wisdom of centuries to boldly proclaim these timeless truths. They declared that all men are created equal.
All men. Doesn't matter if you have an Ivy College degree, if you're a banker, or you're just an average everyday plumber. You are created equal and deserve all the same opportunities amongst each other. More from Trump. Again, Trump gave two huge speeches this weekend. I mean, I almost considered maybe just doing a watch party to go through one of these speeches because, you know, Trump is just one of the best communicators we've ever had as a president. You'd have to go back to, you know, Reagan and then Kennedy before that to get other communicators at his caliber. Here's another excerpt from one of his speeches.
We must never forget there is no American freedom without American culture. And there is no American founding without the American people. Many nations have paper constitutions and legal systems, but the citizens live in fear and squalor. A constitution is only as strong as the people and the culture responsible for upholding it. But as long as we remember who we are, we have to always remember who we are and what we're all about. The United States of America will forever be the land of free men and women, and we will never, ever fail. So tonight, let us say clearly and proudly what makes Americans so unique and extraordinary. We're going to give our country its identity back. Above all, Americans love freedom. We cherish independence, and we know that we are the heirs to the most beautiful land, the most thrilling story, and the most precious legacy on which the sun has ever shined. In America, we do not need anyone's permission to say what we think, and to live as we please, to worship as we choose, or to keep and bear arms. You know that.
You throw a little bit of that music behind any of Trump's speech, it just tears every time. So America is nothing without her culture. And I've said this many times, I repeat Thomas Paine, the Constitution is merely a reflection of the Constitution of her people, right? It's us that uphold the Constitution. It's us that have the right to speak freely, and therefore we should use it. Every right creates a corresponding obligation. If you have the right to speak freely, you should. You are obligated to speak. If you have the right to bear arms in self-defense, you are obligated to bear arms in self-defense. If you have the right to be free in your home from listening ears, from spies, from soldiers quartered in your house, you have a duty to make sure that they're not listening. Third Amendment, right? Get onto a ghost phone. If you have the right to be secure in your papers, your houses, your person, and your things, you have an obligation to try to secure those rights.
What blows me away is like what Marco Rubio was talking about is that people don't understand that if they pick communism, it's the last picking they're doing.
It's the last thing you ever pick. And this is my contention with the Trump accounts, and this is why I brought it up. When you stake your monetary survival, because remember, we're not in this for the money. It just happens to be an incredibly important part of everything.
Yeah.
If you stake your survival on the success of the nation may or may not make it. We may or may not have another stolen election. We may or may not get the Save America Act passed. There may or may not be another Republican president. We have no idea. So why would you, as my dad gave me advice one time, why would you, attach yourself to the sinking whale? You want to get off it. Remember, 1776 is all about freedom. It's all about acting without permission. And from the way I listen to President Trump, he's giving you permission to be free. It doesn't mean that they don't have to manage the public, the unlearned, the unwise, the ill-bred, the vulgar, right? The people who just won't get it. He wants to offer everyone a chance. So Trump accounts are awesome for the public. But for we the people, the peasants, who understand that any government, even our own, can become oppressive, there is an out. There's one key thing that you can do to make it so that your success is not tied to the success of a nation that is engaged in empire building, chasing yellow cake in Iraq for 20 years, and all the ventures that we've been involved in, which some will likely bring some blowback. There's one out. It's the monetary out. Robert Kennedy, he gets it.
A little bit about Bitcoin, and I actually got introduced to it after the Ottawa trucker strike when the government of Ottawa shut down everybody's bank account who were...
I thought Canada was free too. Not as free as you. You can get your bank account shut down. Now, I happen to be speaking to you as someone who had his bank account shut down here in America. So I'm telling you, if you stake your future on the system, it might just fail you.
Participating in a peaceful public protest, and I realized that transactional freedom was as important as freedom of speech, because if the government can starve you to death and get you thrown out of your home and make it so you can't buy gasoline without ever charging you with a crime, without ever convicting you of a crime, just because you complained about a government policy, then freedom of speech is meaningless. Bitcoin clearly was an answer to that, and that's what brought me to that Miami conference. I left that conference utterly enthusiastic about the capacity of Bitcoin to solve a whole host of other problems, cybersecurity problems. It is the currency of freedom. It gives transparency to government. It democratizes our government. It's a hedge against inflation. It's an off-road to these terrible $34 trillion deficit that it can save us from. And it stops government from just printing money, which is the only way to really end war.
That sounds like it's 1776 money, doesn't it? That sounds like it's 1776 money. In fact, I'm pretty sure our founding fathers, had they been around today, they would have adopted Bitcoin as a standard rather than the gold and silver. But that was the reason they wanted gold and silver. They didn't say minted by the US or minted by the Crown or minted by South Africa. They just said an ounce is an ounce. Melt it down, put a new inscription on it. We don't care. An ounce of gold is real. So you see, and Bitcoin has the same thing, because remember, this is all about freedom.
In this country, we can achieve the wildest and most impossible dreams, and no dream in history is bigger or more incredible than the one that started on July 4th, 1776. The war for independence was launched by Minutemen, farmers, blacksmiths, tradesmen, who took up their muskets against the mightiest army on earth, the most powerful army, an unbeatable army, until they met us. No one made them do it. They fought because they knew that a free people must have a free country. Over 250 years, the world has seen the great empires, vast kingdoms, mighty nations, and terrible tyrants. They came and they went. After 2.5 centuries, this American republic still stands tall and strong, and we love each other. That showed tonight. You heard it was over, and what happened? You came back. And this American flag still waves proud and free and beautiful. We have thrived and flourished because our founders were great. Our cause was just, our people are brave, our culture is exceptional, and our destiny is written by God. And as we can see here tonight, after 250 years, the spirit of 1776 still lives within us all. It still roars in the hearts of our nation's capital. It still burns in the heart of every patriot. Thunders through every city and town, and it still lights the entire world with the glow of American liberty. And there is nothing like that. At 250 years old, we may be the oldest constitutional republic on earth, but our country is just getting started. Because
I like that. We're just getting started. Doug Wyatt says, of all they did to me, the weaponization of fencing was a hit below the belt, all while trying to fight the case. I know, man. I remember getting the IRS letters and getting the debanking letter, and it was just like, poof, poof, poof.
I'm not aware of what FinCEN is.
It's the financial center. They do all the financial crimes reporting, and they're the ones who close your bank account down. So Mike Johnson was on Fox News, and he said, listen, the barbarians are behind the gate.
The elected system of our government. Ronald Reagan used to warn about communism. He talked about it, but it was a distant threat across the world. And now the barbarians are inside the gate. So this election cycle is for all the marbles, Shannon. This is not your father's Democrat Party. That party's long gone. The elected system of our government. Ronald Reagan used to warn about communism. He talked about it, but it was a distant threat across the world. And now the barbarians are inside the gate. So this election cycle is for all the marbles, Shannon. This is not.
Did we listen to it twice?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it was a little bit longer than that. It's for all the marbles, this election cycle. Frazier says, wait. I was taught if communism is chosen, revolution is a way out. Yeah, exactly. It's your last vote. After that, it's bullets. The Poland and Hungary leaders were allowed a vote to change. Romania revolted to change. Yeah, after we got rid of USAID. Yeah, same thing in South America. I don't know if you've noticed. It's a right-wing wave. Apparently, the world's a lot more right-wing than left-wing. Goes back to what Catherine Austin Fitts says. There's like 1,000 of these bankers, and then you throw in the world leaders. There's like a couple thousand people that really control all the levers around the world.
Yeah, another uncommon signal that I've been seeing is a lot of people are noticing like there's a lot of There's a lot less mumble rap getting produced.
Yeah, there's a lot less bubble wrap. They're not throwing money at the inner city anymore. We got to save that for ballot harvesting. So here's Donald Trump again.
We can only lose the midterms if we allow ourselves to lose the midterms, if we are foolish, stupid, and unwise. But if we terminate the filibuster, as we should do, and immediately vote for the Save America Act, then we will not lose an election for 100 years. We do that, we're not going to lose an election for 100 years. The Communist Party is made up of illegal immigrants, criminals, and everybody that doesn't want to work.
Yep. All right. So here's Mike Johnson again.
Hilarious.
This Communist Party takeover that's taken over the Democrat Party. This is not safe.
About this. This is a serious threat to our whole system of government. These are Marxist. It's communism, socialism. Those are deviations of Marxism. Begins with the opposite premise of America, and it is a serious threat to us. These people want to say, they're saying it out loud. They want to abolish all borders. They want to abolish all prisons. They want to defund the police. They want to abolish the U.S. Senate. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They want the government to take over control of all production. This is communism, and it has led to the murder of innocent people, tens of millions of them in the 20th century alone. We have to fight this. We're no longer serious about this. This is a serious threat.
This is serious, right? And it's high time that we got serious about it. Having Donald Trump come out against it so strongly, calling it by name is a big deal. You've got Mike Johnson calling it by name, and you have Governor Ron DeSantis calling it by name.
They come from God, that's it. There's no more debate about it. Government's either got to be limited or not. If it is, then we always have to have limited government. And when I see the Mandamis of the world, they're basically offering these ideas. They claim they're progressive. They're really regressive. They're things that the founding fathers rejected. They're ideas that have failed throughout history. And we have a chance now with 250 to look back and say, we're inheritors of an awfully good legacy. We got lucky to have founding fathers pledge their lives, fortune, and sacred honor the way they did when they did it.
So one of the things that I have noticed is you have right-wing communists and you have left-wing communists. Remember, what's a right-wing communist? A fascist, right? They're going to use private business, but they'll take government control. So they'll leave the name a private business, but then they control everything that private business does, right?
Okay.
They regulate it, they control it, they put price fix locking on it, like they just total regulation. On the other side of that, you have independence, where an entrepreneur gets to decide what wages he pays and what he does. And the only regulation that exists is just to protect the public, period. Like, no arsenic in your toothpaste or something like that, right? Like common, normal stuff.
No lead in the toys.
No lead in the toys. Yeah. Once we figured out lead was bad. Only when we figured out lead was bad. So how is it that we got here? How is we got to the point to where the Socialist Party, the Democrat Socialists of America, the communists have gotten such a foothold in the Democrat Party? I think of this in a long time frame. If you go back to World War II, at the end of World War II, there was a huge draw of what? Nazi scientists, National Socialist Party scientists, Operation Paperclip, and they got put all through government. Obviously, Carlitos will tell you all about NASA, and you've got a bunch of military positions that got taken up, and you also have other positions, State Department, other things like that. And you have to remember, prior to Hitler falling, all of the Nazi spies, which were spread all over Russia, they were spread all over Europe, they were spread all over England, and even into the United States. Those Nazi spies that were deep cover were writing intelligence reports to Mr. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler ate a bullet. And who did they write those intelligence reports to the next week? Eisenhower and Truman.
What?
We picked up their intelligence services. Vast majority of them just kind of came onto our side of the thing. So we had an infusion, and there's really no historical doubt about this. We had an infusion of Nazism, fascism into the American bloodstream at that moment. Communism was already trying to infiltrate, and fascism was too. And remember, fascism and communism are just right foot, left foot. They accomplish the same thing. They just do it with different impetus. One of them's already in charge, wants to regulate business. One of them wants to get rid of whoever's in charge and then regulate business. Okay? Like at the end of the day, they're the same thing.
Different window dressing.
There's a lot of people that I would look in our government and I would say they're actually less communist and they're more fascist. Who are these people? I would consider these people the Nancy Pelosi's, the Dianne Feinsteins. You can go on. There's a long list of Harry Reid, Chuck Schumer. You can go through this long list. I would even throw in there like Mitch McConnell. I mean, limited government, blah, blah, blah. But then why all the state power all the time? Why the No Child Left Behind Act involving the federal government in elementary education? You know, why? Because there's fascism. Well, think about these senators, congressmen that spend 20, 30, 40 years in office. So they start out as Nazis, right? Big state control. That's kind of their MO. But as time goes on, fascism becomes less and less vogue. Communism falls in the East, Russia falls. And now communism kind of absorbs that state control thing. So if you're pro-state control, whether it's from the right or the left, you're going to congregate in the Democrat Party. So these people, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and others, they've been around a long time. They're pro-state control. As they get older, the original staffers that kind of babysat them, imagine you come into office as a young 29-year-old Biden or McConnell or Pelosi, right? Who are your staffers? They're probably older than you. You probably inherited some of them. They're in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're the ones that are trying to help you figure out how you're doing your job.
Yeah. Well, pretty soon your staffers are now 70 and 80 and they retire. And you get new staffers. Meanwhile, you're 70 and 80. You get new staffers that are in their 20, also pro-state power, but with this new flair.
I mean, now you're the new trainer.
You're the trainer, and there's this new flair with your staffers. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who remember Marjorie Trader Greene? You know, we're not giving up on that. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on a podcast, and she was describing why so many representatives and senators, especially, allow themselves to literally die in office. There's a better than 50-50 coin shot chance right now that Mitch McConnell is dead. Okay. No updates from him. He's in the hospital. His wife took off to Beijing. Like, weirdest thing, right? So here is Marjorie Taylor Greene describing how these elderly senators are living their lives.
Yes. I'll tell you why. When they've been there for 30 to 40 years, that literally becomes their life. And
That's so sad.
It's horrible. It's a miserable existence. So imagine yourself being 80 years old and your staff is your caretakers. They take you to the doctor. They pick up your drop off and pick up your dry cleaning. They help you get your groceries. They wheel these people around in their damn wheelchairs. I'm not kidding you. They wheel them all over the Capitol, all over the office buildings, to their committee hearings, to the House floor to vote, where once they're in front of the cameras, they stand their decrepit old selves up and they walk into the House floor and they sit in a chair. They put their voting card in the machine and they push green or red based on what their staff tells them to vote. And then they come out and they give their occasional few-minute speech or they read their speech and they read their talking points on their committee hearings. That's what these people are. The very sad, looks very lonely, horrible existence of many of these old members of Congress and senators is you're not seeing an old person that is living out the end of their life surrounded by their children and their grandchildren and maybe even great-grandchildren. No. You're seeing these old people wearing their old dumpy suits or they're very, some of these women are like Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi, and some of these women are wearing extremely expensive, beautiful suits, wearing high heels that I don't know how their old feet can possibly walk around in those high heels, but that's how they're spending their days. And they can't let go of the praise, you know what they love more than anything? Oh, let me hold the door for you, Mr. Congressman, or let me hold it. Yes, your honor here. Oh, it's good to see you again, sir. Come on in. They are addicted to all of that. And so it's why they never give it up. They never give it up. And most of them, after they've been there so long, that's how they earn their paycheck. So what would they replace their paycheck with? And that's really it's just a horrible, awful reality, but it's a reality that I wish so many times the American people could see that old person being wheeled around by their 25-year-old staffer to go in there and read the words that the other 20-year-olds wrote in their office and vote the way they've told them to vote. You're not being represented. I'm just telling you, you're not being represented.
Fraser says Robbie Suave. I'll listen to him on the Hill after at Peasants Perspective. Cool. So imagine that. Congress and the Senate essentially becomes an old folks home. And why would you check out? My groceries get picked up. I get wheeled around. My dry cleaning gets picked up. I don't have to think.
Great.
These young 20-year-old Democrat Socialists of America will write my talking points. And as long as there's state power in there, I'm okay. Right? That's what we see. You're not being represented. You think a Mitch McConnell takes constituent meetings and actually cares? You think Chuck Schumer takes constituent meetings and actually cares? Not at all. Not at all. So that's what's behind the gates. And that is why communism has crept in. And here's Donald Trump again. This is an all-out war on communism.
Of the American system, and the communist system has never worked. Our warriors did not fight communism on battlefields across the world, only to have that menace rear its ugly head right back here in America. We're not going to let it happen. We like to stop a threat like that immediately and before it begins. It's like a cancer. You got to cut it out. You got to cut it out fast.
If the Save America Act does not get passed by the Senate, I bet you Donald Trump declares a national emergency against the communists in America and does something about the elections. And it will be a force that will damn near rip our country apart.
Yeah, it's not going to happen without it's not going to be a whimper.
No. So
I'm not looking forward to that moment, and I think that's why he's holding off, and let's not do this. Let's try to get the Senate to do this thing.
He always lets the process play out, which is why he left office for 4 years.
Come on, Senate.
Let the process play out. Hope that the Constitution holds, right? So as peasants, we have to take the exit door. We have to. You want to become the strength of America or her weakness? You want to be her credit or her liability?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be the one that owns the gold and can lend it back to the government to prop her up? Or do you want to be the one that they have to take from your essence as you work to pay the interest? There is a difference there. Scott Bessent explains it clearly. There is an asset that is more precious than the dollar.
This administration's commitment to digital assets, it's innovation, because there's so many other things that happen around digital assets. And also, it's one of those things that it's one of the most important phenomena that's happening in the world, and the U.S. just ignored it. This administration's commitment to digital assets.
Digital assets. And he's speaking really specifically about Bitcoin. Michael Saylor was on with Laura Trump. Now, remember, the Trump family is really big into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically. And Michael Saylor, who runs Strategy or whatever it is, one of the largest ETFs of Bitcoin, sat down with Laura Trump. And he gave some advice to Donald Trump.
If you could talk to President Trump and say, here's the one thing I would tell you to do to ensure that America leads the way in the crypto space, what would you tell him?
I would say he's already done the first thing, which is highlight Bitcoin as a store of value, as digital gold, and put the United States support behind a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The second thing is to support the creation in law of a legitimate path for issuers in the United States to issue digital tokens, digital securities, and digital currency. Because if American companies can create those digital assets, we will become bankers to the world.
If you could talk to President Trump and say,
and isn't that what we want to be?
Yeah.
Right? Just like there's a reason why America ended up being the reserve currency of the world. It's because America and her citizens owned most of the gold. That's why. So in a world where gold is becoming less and less useful, we want to get on board with the next thing that's useful. Cynthia Loomis from Wyoming, who's considered the crypto senator or the Bitcoin senator, she said this weekend.
Have modeling that shows that Bitcoin is going to increase dramatically and then more slowly over time. All of the Bitcoin meaning 99% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be mined, will be mined in the next 10 years. So this asset has growth potential for the next 10 years that's tremendous. I think the American people should admire the fact that President Trump was foresightful enough to engage in the digital economy. Everyone is going to be involved in this economy in one way or another. And I'm proud of the president for choosing to engage in this very promising component of the economy.
And if you go to what Cynthia Loomis says about how Bitcoin could have been the money of our founding fathers, you understand this clearly. In the spirit of America 250 years down, in the spirit of maintaining our sovereignty and fighting communism, centralization of the economy, economic decisions, centralization of regulation, and all those things, Bitcoin is the escape hatch. It's not for everybody. It can be. It's not for everyone, right? The dollar is going to continue, and you're either going to be on the debtor side where you're paying for it, or you're going to be on the banker side where you're getting paid for it. So choose wisely, my peasants. Choose wisely. Okay, that is it for the show today. Spot on, 7:59. That's not too bad, Ron. Spot on. All right, guys, we will talk to you again tomorrow. Don't forget to visit 1776live.us and get registered for an Ignite presentation. Also, don't forget to visit politicalremodel.com and take back my county. Both of those are still very active, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.
Ma'am, sorry. What knight lives in that castle over there? I'm 37. What? I'm 37. I'm not old. Well, I can't just call you man. You could say Dennis. I didn't know you were called Dennis. Well, you didn't bother to find out, did you? I did say sorry about the old woman, but from behind you looked... What I object to is you automatically treat me like an inferior. Well, I am king. Oh, king, eh? Very nice. And how'd you get that, eh? By exploiting the workers. By hanging on to outdated imperialist dogma which perpetuates the economic and social differences in our society. If there's ever going to be any progress...
Dennis, there's some lovely filth down here. Oh, how'd you do?
How do you do, good lady? I am Arthur, King of the Britons. Whose castle is that?
King of the who?
The Britons.
Who are the Britons?
Well, we all are. We are all Britons. And I am your king.
Oh, didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective.
You're fooling yourself. We're living in a dictatorship. A self-perpetuating autocracy in which the working classes...
Oh, there you go, bringing class into it again.
Well, that's what it's all about. If only people would... Please, good people. I am in haste. Who lives in that castle?
No one lives there.
Then who is your lord?
We don't have a lord.
What? I told you. We're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more major... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet.
Order? Who does he think he is?
I am your king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
You don't vote for kings?
Well, how'd you become king, then?
The Lady of the Lake. Her arm clad in the purest shimmering samite held aloft Excalibur from the bosom of the water, signifying by divine providence that I, Arthur, was to carry Excalibur. That is why I'm your king. Listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not from some farcical aquatic ceremony. Be quiet! Oh, but you can't expect to wield supreme executive power just because some watery tart threw a sword at you. Shut up! I mean, if I went round saying I was an emperor just because some moistened bint had lobbed a scimitar at me, they'd put me away. Shut up! Will you shut up? Ah, now we see the violence inherent in the system. Shut up! Oh, come and see the violence inherent in the system! Help! Help! I'm being repressed! Bloody peasant! Oh, what a giveaway. Did you hear that? Did you hear that, eh? That's what I'm on about. Did you see him repressing me? You saw it, didn't you?